Thank you, Glenn. Colleague Arcadia is going to open up the slide deck as she's doing that. My name is Tom Cramer from Stanford University. I am one of the co-chairs of the Discovery for Humans community group, and I'm here with the other co-chairs, Ben Bakelaar, Arcadia Falcone, Paola Manoni, and Jeff Mixter. And we're going to give you an update on some pretty exciting work and a taster of a keynote that will be coming later today. Next slide. Discovery for Humans, the scope and the objectives really stems from one key observation. Next slide. Which is interoperable content is of no use if you as a human can't find it. Next slide. Or figure out how to use it. And a lot of IIIF and the strength of IIIF has really been in the API specifications and development of supporting technologies. And a few years ago, we had a kind of a collective recognition that unless we also invested in making the content discoverable and then making the content and the features of IIIF usable, we really weren't going to achieve the full value that we were hoping for. And Discovery for Humans was born with an emphasis on humans rather than machines or agents to make sure that IIIF materials were ultimately useful to researchers, scholars, and other users worldwide. Next slide. So this might be boiled down to two key questions. How do you find content in the next silo over? And how do you use that content once you find it? Next slide. And for scoping, we've wrestled with these questions, and there's some large scale issues here. One of the early recognitions that we made is that discovery and usability are co-equal. And one of the key questions we're looking at is, does focusing on usability of discovery systems actually get us a fair amount of the way there? I think the answer is yes. Next slide. We've also, as we're working with this, a distinction between digital content, all digital content versus just IIIF content. For the sake of scope and focus, obviously there are benefits from focusing just on IIIF rather than tackling how researchers, scholars, and users work with digital content from anywhere. Next slide. We also realize that one of the challenges in talking about IIIF is that there are various levels of awareness and savviness, and discoverability and usability for a muggle or someone who is unaware of IIIF is very different from someone who might be aware of it or someone who might be, say, an active developer or a power user. What we wanted to do in the course of this group is recognize that all three are valid and distinct pools of users with distinct sets of needs. Next slide. Getting once more to the mission, we want to find, well, how do you find content in the next silo over and how do you use it? And doing that for all levels of users. Next slide. One of the things that we are not focused on is technical architecture for harvesting content or syndicating content from all different providers and surfacing it through a single interface. It's a great question, but not one of the areas that we are currently focused on. Next slide. And specifically within the goals of IIIF and part of our charter is we want to research to understand people discovering IIIF materials, analyze current discovery systems, design and test prototype systems for enhancements, generate evidence-backed recommendations to improve discovery, and then really work within the community to catalyze the development and delivery of better discovery systems through constant dissemination and communication. Next slide. We have two primary goals to start with. The first is user research. And actually for all of the attention given to IIIF, there really has been little published user experience research developed so far. And we feel that this group has a key role in promoting this. Next slide. And the second is evidence-based analysis of current discovery system. So what are the current IIIF sites? What are the discovery features that they have and promote? And can we identify and recommend patterns and lessons? And next slide. And one of the first areas, which was actually generated by Andrew Wilson at St. Andrews, was trying to figure out where to find IIIF manifests. And Andrew did a brilliant job of assembling how different sites, and I think there are about 30 or 40 different sites, if you go to guides.iif.io, 30 or 40 different sites which each present their manifests in distinct ways. And Andrew put together a brilliant inventory of how to do that, but also an illustration about, with such varying patterns, we're really presenting challenges for users and reusers of content. So the IIIF Discovery for Humans has adopted and promoted this. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Arcadia, who will talk about the feature review.
Thanks, Tom. So one of the endeavors we're working on right now is a review of how discovery features are implemented across different systems. So first, some background. Previously, and you may have seen our presentation on this at the fall working meeting, we did a site-by-site analysis of various discovery platforms, which we captured in a slide deck. And so that was kind of a holistic analysis of an individual site and what the features were on that individual site and how they were implemented. And from that, we were able to extract a list of observed features that we condensed down to a set. And so now we're pivoting to focus on the specific features rather than on specific sites to better see how things are commonly implemented and what are some unusual implementations that might benefit from further investigation. So our feature list centers on things that like contextual information about IIIF and how that is conveyed to the user, search and browse specifically for IIIF compliant items, the manifest, API and documentation, and how the user can interact with the collections and share specific sets of items or a specific item view. The goals of this work are again to identify common patterns and also unusual patterns for how a feature is presented. In the end, to provide examples of how a pattern is implemented that can be used as reference for other people developing new implementations or revising existing implementations. Also to form an initial sense from our own perspective as IIIF power users of what might be promising patterns that could benefit the community by being implemented in a more widespread manner. But also particularly to support future user research. So to provide a sample set of features that can drive additional user testing to really get a data-backed understanding of the usability of specific patterns, with the end result of having a catalog of feature implementations that is backed by specific user research that can form as a resource for future system development. And now I'm going to hand it over to Ben, who's going to talk about our first feature review, the IIIF icon.
Yeah, so that link right there will link you to a little mini deck with a few more details, but we're just going to go through kind of the highlights here. So next slide. Okay, so we had put out a survey to the community to submit their examples of how they're using the IIIF icon, and we received 46 survey responses. Out of those, after we parsed through, in total, there were 38 icons analyzed. Sometimes on a single site or page, the icon is used in multiple ways. And I think it was a fascinating experience to go through all of these. In that prior link, there is a link to the data set, which I encourage everyone to just jump in and open up those links and see what's there. Really, really interesting. But we found through the analysis some fairly strong trends. Of course, this is just a snapshot, so the numbers might change, but I doubt the kind of major minor trend would shift much. In terms of icon visibility, 80% of the icon pages we analyzed have an icon visible either on the page itself, meaning outside the viewer, or inside the viewer. Whereas 20%, you have to click something in order to see it, maybe a share button or a share icon or a drop down or something like that. In terms of where the icon is placed, really just between inside the viewer versus outside. The majority is outside. It's either in the item record, or even if you're beyond an item in a list of collections, which ones are IIIF enabled, something like that. A couple sites even have it on their homepage to just indicate, hey, we're a site that is IIIF compatible. In terms of what the icon does, and this is where there's a lot of diversity, 63% open the manifest, in one way or another. There's multiple ways that can happen. Whereas 15% are used to launch a viewer. Typically Mirador, but other times there's other viewers as well. Out of the remaining percentage, there's a couple other actions that people have used for the icon. It might trigger a pop-up, which is something I'm gonna show. It's a very interesting pattern that has emerged recently. It could be it could trigger a drop-down menu of multiple choices. Sometimes it's linking to an FAQ, either on-site or to the official IIIF to explain what IIIF is. In one case, I think it triggered an item search within that discovery system. And sometimes it's not clickable and it's just a visual indicator, maybe for instance, next to the manifest hyperlink. And finally, the older pattern, the kind of well-established pattern of drag and drop only works in about 65% of the cases that we analyzed. And I think it really depends on the browser, but sometimes you have to drag and drop it twice in order to get the viewer to accept it. And so we've been thinking about what are some other patterns out there beyond drag and drop that are a better user experience. So next slide, please. One that was really, really interesting and user-friendly is what I'm calling a pop-up with explanation plus manifest. And so this is at the Leiden collection. And when you click on the IIIF icon, this little pop-up shows up with an understandable kind of non-technical explanation, and then the IIIF manifest link. Another example of that on the next slide is at Biblissima. And these are the only two cases. I'd be very interested if anyone else has a use case where this is on the discovery system. In this case, you hover over the IIIF icon, the pop-up comes up, document compliant with IIIF standards, and there's a manifest link inside that pop-up, as well as a read more about IIIF. Next slide. Another pattern which we like is copy to clipboard. So the University of Toronto, in their full screen Mirador viewer, has a copy IIIF manifest. You click on it, puts it in your clipboard. So there's really no drag and dropping. And this is a fairly common UX pattern across the web, which we think it would be great to see more of in IIIF implementations. Next slide, please. Biblissima also has the same thing. It's not using the IIIF icon to achieve that. It's over there a little bit on the right with a standard copy to clipboard icon. And one more example, next slide. Very, very clear and obvious. This is from SMK Open or OpenSMK out of Denmark. And you actually have to click a share button. So you don't click on the IIIF icon, but once you do, full screen, you see the IIIF, you see the link, and you can copy it to your clipboard. So those were some interesting or emerging patterns that we saw. And we would love to do, find more use cases, as well as do some more formal research to see what users understand best. Next slide. Okay, so I think I'm gonna continue talking here for one moment. There's a couple of ongoing activity tracks. Next slide, please. Most significantly, it's really not quite ongoing anymore. It's finished as of today. The research, which has been going on for the past, I don't know, 3, 4, maybe even 6 months, is now ready to be shared. Research questions were formulated. Research outcomes have been codified into recommendations and personas. And we've also been discussing in the community group about this, using this as a repeatable research model. I'm not going to give any preview actually of what those questions or outcomes are. I don't want to steal Amy's thunder. Please tune in at 1 p.m. Eastern today for the keynote on UX interviews on IIIF. Next slide. Is someone going to comment about the future feature reviews?
Only that Arcadia presented an earlier list. We've done the first one, and we anticipate repeating that for about the remaining dozen.
It'll take a while. Okay, next slide. Jeff, are you here?
I am, yes.
Would you like to promote the group?
Yeah, so you can follow us on the Slack channel, D4H Discovery for Humans. And then our next upcoming community call will be on July 7th, 2021. So in a couple of weeks here.
And I think we have some time for Q&A, a few minutes.
So I think we can do this in two ways. Either you can ask questions on the Hoover app, or you can also unmute yourself if you want to speak.
I have a question, guys. This is Deborah. So is this group going to develop a set of standards eventually to recommend to people to follow? Is that what the objective is?
I think the discussion so far has been compiling the examples, analyzing, and conducting research. Whether it comes out in terms of standards may not be the case, but certainly some sort of guidelines or recommendations that people can, trace backwards to the examples and evidence. That's definitely a goal.
And you think the drag and drop system that was so popular when IIIF started, you think that's going to fall by the wayside? The users aren't it's not connecting with users, especially beginner users?
One of the, another, so I think important goal sort of related to that question is just sort of observing what is going on, without initially passing judgment as to whether a given feature has, fallen by the wayside or fallen out of favor or not been adopted or not being used, just sort of understanding what is happening out there. And then once we have a better understanding of what is happening in the community, we can identify sort of patterns and the way those patterns are implemented into sort of user experience or UIs. And as Ben mentioned, maybe not set standards, but just say, this is a trend that we see across the IIIF community.
Got it.
And also to contextualize our findings so that certain things work better in certain contexts, certain situations. And so people can better tailor their implementations to fit their particular context.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Stacy. I'm also part of Stacy Reddick from the Folger Shakespeare Library. I'm also part of the D4H group. And I think to follow along that train of thought, if I may, once we have the research done and we have the set of trends, then we can go back to the users and we can find out which ones are really working for them and which ones really aren't. And that might help us develop a set of guidelines for later on. But we need to first discover what works before we can set those guidelines. So that is going to be further down the road.
I do see two questions in Whova. I'm trying to toggle back and forth here. One from Peter, do you have a personal list of the biggest missing patterns in our common environment? I think I can answer that well. Do I have a personal list? Not off the top of my head, and I don't think we have an official list either. But that would be interesting to survey what other patterns are out there that aren't being used. And Anne's question, do you also have an idea of who and how people make use of the copy and paste? I think that's a question I'll bring into our next community call. Because if that's going to replace drag and drop, to your point, right, how do they use it? Are we out of time, Glenn?
Yes. You can see me getting nervous. Well, thank you everyone for joining. The next session will start in 5 minutes. So if you're staying on track 2, I will see you in a couple of minutes. Thank you all.